Wozniak, Berksey, Minority Vice Chair, LeGrand, Young. Sincerely, Jason Wentworth, Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives.
Would the clerk please take attendance?
Representative Johnson.
Here.
Representative Outman.
Here.
Whitinga. Here. Riley.
Here.
O'Malley.
Here.
Wozniak.
Here.
Berksey.
Here.
LeGrand. Young.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. At this point, Representative Outman moves to adopt Thursday at 10:30 a.m. in room 326 of the House Office Building as the normal day, time, and location for meetings of the House Oversight Committee. Would the clerk please take the roll call vote?
On the motion to adopt the day, time, and location of the House Oversight Committee, Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Representatives Outman.
Yes.
Whitinga.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
O'Malley.
Yes.
Wozniak.
Here. Yes.
Berksey.
Yes.
LeGrand. Young.
Here. Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 yeas, no nays, no pass. With that, the day, time, and location is adopted.
Thank you. The House Oversight Committee will follow the committee rules as prescribed in Chapter 4 of the House Rules. All right, now that we have gotten through the administrative stuff, welcome everyone to the House Oversight Committee. This will be a busy committee this term. I'm excited to have each and every one of you on here. I'm a very punctual person, so we're going to gavel in at 10:30 every time, and we're going to start rolling. Today, we'll be finished at 11:45, hard stop. So if you're a testifier at that point in time, not going to be rude, but we have to end at 11:45. Just to give you a brief update on what this committee is going to be doing, if you look in the news, there's been a lot of things out there, a lot of distrust in our government, and that's incumbent upon our committee to address those issues. You see Detroit News, Michigan's transparency law is subverted by stalling, loopholes, nonprofit in Michigan COVID fight draws oversight abuse fears. Lansing State Journal, 10 months into pandemic, unemployment system continues to frustrate thousands of Michiganders. Detroit Free Press, top Michigan State police officials using encryption messaging apps that can avoid FOIA. So a lot of transparency issues that we'll be addressing, unemployment issues we'll be addressing, and we will do that in due time. Next week, we will hopefully be doing testimony about the vaccine rollout. Hope to have someone from DHHS here for that. However, today we are going to discuss the recent order on a ban on contact sports for high schoolers. This has been an issue that has gained a lot of attention. There's a lot of frustrated people in the state of Michigan. There seems to be double standards. If you see on the slide there, if it is an ice rink, the current rules allow for an open skate to have 68 skaters on there. That's safe. But you can't have a game with 11 skaters. Doesn't really seem to make any sense. We also see that high schools are done, but Red Wings, they're playing in Texas tonight. Then they're going to be back in Detroit Saturday and Sunday. Western, they're going to be playing, they played on Tuesday, they'll play again Saturday. Michigan State, they played Ohio State in East Lansing this past Sunday, and they'll be playing Wisconsin tomorrow. The Detroit Pistons, they're hosting the Lakers tonight. Central Michigan, they're playing this Saturday. Grand Valley's playing Wayne State this Saturday. So the professionals get to play, the college athletes get to play, but the high schoolers don't. That doesn't really seem to add up. If we're trying to save lives, why do some people get to play and others don't? And then obviously, as you see increases in mental health calls, especially among our youth, I think there is a correlation here. Every mental health expert out there would agree that physical exercise is good not just for your physical health, but your mental health as well. So that's kind of what brought us here to this meeting. We got a lot of people want to testify, so we're going to try to go through them as quick as possible, let you guys share your story. And so to start, all right, we have a question. All right, Representative Berksey.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for allowing me this opportunity. This is the first time I've been on this committee, so I'll probably ask a lot of newbie questions, and I appreciate your patience. The first thing I wanted to ask is sort of a procedural question. So we have a lot of people in this room, and I am a person who really likes to work hard and come to work, and I'm very dedicated. I also am healthy, and I'm very low on the vaccine priority list, but family members of mine are not. The last time this committee met, I believe it was in the same room, that unfortunately functioned as a super spreader event, and we were forced to shut down the legislature for an entire
Could
week.
you keep your comments to this committee, ma'am? You're on the
Yes.
last term.
And
Please sort it out.
so what I'm asking is to avoid another shutdown of our government from the spread of COVID-19, I would ask that the chair and institute a rule to require folks that are on the committee and in this room to be appropriately masked and help protect the rest of us.
At this
So
point in time,
that
we're
would
not
be
going to
my
doing
request.
that. Everyone here was duly elected by their district. They're allowed to make their decisions as they see fit. Thank you. All right, so, and just to make sure everyone is aware, we did invite DHHS, the ones who implemented the order. We did invite them to testify on Tuesday when we decided to do this committee. They said it was too short time notice for them to get here. I find that unfortunate, but that is where we are today. So we did extend that offering to them. They're not here, so we're going to start it off with MHSAA elected board member John Thompson, if he's around. All right, if you could come to the testimony there and press the red button and go ahead and give us your testimony. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to engage about education, educational athletics, and Michigan kids. Specifically, student athletes from across our great state. Kids from the UP's Copper Country, kids from small rural communities like Remus and Brown City, kids from urban areas like Flint, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Saginaw, and Detroit public schools. Kids from suburban areas like Ann Arbor, Dearborn, Okemos, Rockford, and Troy, and where I call home, Brighton, Michigan. All kids deserve the best education possible. The best education possible happens both inside and outside the classroom. For Michigan student athletes, the best education must include the opportunity to participate fully in school sports and activities after the last bell of the school day rings. There's a reason that 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs participated in high school athletics and hire people who participated in high school athletics. I bet many of you participated in high school sports or other school activities that help make you who you are today. Michigan's 1,500 plus high schools and middle schools have nearly 200,000 student athletes participate in a given year. 200,000 Michigan kids and roughly 500,000 people impacted by decisions that limit access or restrict how they can fully participate in educational athletics. I have stood in front of our kids and have personally delivered the bad news when it comes, and that's okay. That's part of my job, that's part of the deal. However, myself and my colleagues across the state tell our kids, hang in there, stay ready, control what you can control. We tell them to take care of each other and keep spirit and hope alive. That's what we do in school sports. But privately, I ask myself, how many times will Lucy pull the ball out from Charlie Brown? In the comic strip, I know the answer. It's every time. But our kids aren't a comic strip. They deserve better. Kids and student athletes in particular are resilient. But make no mistake, these decisions are taking a toll on our student athletes and families in Michigan. A social emotional toll, a mental health toll, a physical health toll, and a school climate toll. You can look at the data, and if you ask some of these students that are here today, they would tell you just Google it. It's out there. Increased depression, anxiety, kids more prone to making bad choices, and our most physically active kids are becoming physically less active. Our adult decisions as they relate to COVID and playing youth and school sports in Michigan are not helping kids. Kids are smart and are willing to do what is right as long as it makes some sense. As a respected colleague from Livonia asked the governor yesterday, what else would you like us to do? These kids have done the daily COVID screenings, stayed home when not feeling well, sanitize equipment, don't use their locker rooms, come dressed to practice and games, play with limited or no spectators. They just want to play. Even when the orders to wear a mask while practicing or playing, they said game on, even though their peers in other states play without. The question of what is going to what it's going to take is a fair question. I hear lots of talk of following the science, the metrics, etc., but what is the pathway for all sports to be played? Our kids and families know that 97% of all MHSA contests this past fall were played safely. Our kids and families know that the results of the 3 times a week antigen testing that football, volleyball, girls swim and dive had to comply with to finish their season yielded a 99.8% negative rate. In January, the message came out that we want all kids back in some format of face-to-face learning by March 1st. My Brighton High School kids, of which 85% were in person this semester, about 95% will be next week when we start the second semester, have a tough time reconciling that they can be together all day in their classrooms with masks, be together without masks while they eat lunch, but when the bell rings, they cannot compete in basketball, competitive cheer, hockey, or wrestling. Kids are smart, and not just kids in Brighton. Kids across the state of Michigan are smart. Winter contact sports have started in 38 states as of this week, but not in Michigan. Indiana, Ohio, and Wisconsin have been practicing and competing in basketball, cheer, hockey, and wrestling since November 15th without masks. Furthermore, in these 3 neighboring states, daily new cases and positive test rates have decreased since those sports started. When will Michigan kids be able to play without leaving the state? We want folks to travel less, but yet by default, we're making kids and parents travel out of state to play. By default, we are making kids and parents seek out alternatives from school sports who have established and followed COVID protocols. For those with means, that's doable. For those that, maybe don't have those fiscal means, they can't do that. How is that fair? So many things that when compiled as a whole that do not make sense. The latest governmental delay puts our kids at a crossroads for winter contact sports, and in doing so, threatens affecting spring sports who last spring lost everything. The MHSA's latest adopted schedule prior to this last setback is to start contests in hockey on February 1st, and girls and boys basketball on February 4th, and competitive cheer and wrestling on February 8th. Our kids and families need your help to make this happen now. The days on the calendar are clicking by. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care, what you represent in terms of party. Our kids and families need people who will stand up, stand together to provide the best education possible, both inside and outside of the classroom. Thank you. Make it a great day, and let's let these kids play. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a question for you, and I really appreciate your comment on the bipartisanship of this. The number of people that reached out to my office, these aren't all Republicans or all Democrats. They don't care about their party. They just realize what's best for their kids, and they want to make sure that can happen. I believe Representative O'Malley has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, yes. In another lifetime, I was a high school coach, and I was a spring coach. And spring coaches always get the short end of the stick in northern Michigan.
Absolutely.
And I'm just thinking as you chatted, last year spring sports were wiped out. Looks like they could be in serious hurt again this year because winter sports might extend. I'd like your reaction and your thought. Football, which just wrapped up, they were able to follow the protocols, I would assume, because they carried on. And the other thing that I remember about coaching is that it isn't always just about the game. It is about community. It's about having that structure. A lot of these kids need that structure. Knowing that somebody is there that cares for them, because in some cases the family might not be the strongest. So I guess I'd just like your thoughts on it. More than just playing a game, high school sports mean a whole lot more to our community than, again, just balls and strikes or, goals. Your thoughts?
Sure. You must have certainly been a pretty good coach back in the day because you still remember what school sports are about. Those are the values that school sports bring to kids. And I'm going to tell you right now, you mentioned the word structure. Right now, during a time of COVID, and everybody, I think people take COVID seriously. I mean, they need structure. They need structure in the school day. They need structure outside of the school day. There's a reason that social and emotional toll is taking place. There's a reason kids are more prone to making bad decisions. our kids are willing to do whatever it takes to be able to be with their peers and have that social interaction. Yeah, you know, and I will also comment that in terms of, you know, I grew up in the Sioux, so I know about spring sports getting the short end of the stick in Michigan. But we are at a crossroads today, okay? I told you the dates that the MHSA put forward to resume play before this latest setback. So now we're looking at February 22nd, which truthfully is 3 weeks out, but it's not really, because we need to give those kids some actual real practices before they can play. So we're looking at 3.5 to 4 weeks out, okay, before. I mean, hypothetically, we haven't touched spring sports right now, but we're looking at playing basketball districts in April, okay? I'm sorry, in March, the week of March 22nd. Spring sports are supposed to start the week prior. You know, those gyms are going to be full. I mean, unless you live in a community where you're blessed to have a ton of facilities, which most schools don't, a baseball team's not getting into the gym. A softball team or a girls lacrosse team's not getting into the gym. And if we push this back 3.5 to 4 more weeks, you know, I'm not a great math guy, but I can tell you what that's going to do to spring sports. There's going to be a cause and effect, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
I believe Representative Outman has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, sir, for your testimony. Just have a simple question for you. Did the administration or the Department of Health and Human Service talk to you guys at all at the MHSAA prior to making their determination, and has there been any transparency whatsoever?
Truthfully, up until this week, no, there has not been a lot of dialogue. I know that the Michigan High School Athletic Association has worked diligently to be a good faith partner, both with the governor's office and the Department of Health and Human Services, but it certainly has gotten very quiet the last 3 or 4 months, and you know, not even a courtesy heads up in a lot of these situations.
Okay, thank you. Yield the remainder of my time.
Representative Young.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And again, good morning, and thank you all for coming out today. This is an important conversation, and so we just need you to know that, you know, we care about you. That's one thing that needs to be spoken. I think it is not said enough that, you know, for me as a first-term legislator, I came to work just saying, love is the work. I started at a place of just loving on folks. So let's just make that clear right now. So I care about you guys. And as we're looking at this new variant, we've learned so much since COVID first hit us in March. But now we have another unknown with the new variant. And so that's concerning for me. And so my question would simply be, and I know we're pushing it out, and let me just be transparent. I'm mom of a student athlete. My son went and won state championship in football, so I get it. I know how important this is to you guys. But with this new variant, can we just perhaps take a little more time to find out how that's affecting our young people, and perhaps find out, get more data on that, and would allow a few more weeks to get the vaccines in, and those types of things. I'm just curious about that. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
I'm not a doctor, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express, but you know, obviously, you know, the variant has been in the news. I mean, last time I checked, there was about 17 cases. Maybe it's changed since I woke up this morning. I do know from what I've read that people who do work in the medical field feel that the vaccine for COVID-19 also will address the variant. You know, how prevalent that variant will come or not become, you know, I guess time will see. In answer to pushing back, we're at about our 5th reset on winter contact sports in the state of Michigan, and actually all winter sports when you look at the various different orders. We are really literally running out of days on the calendar. And I don't know what's going to, honestly, ma'am, I don't know what's going to change in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You know, hopefully the numbers continue to trend down, and the economy can continue to, you know, get opened up and get rolling again. But honestly, we are running out of days, and I don't know what will be different in 3.5 to 4 weeks, or past that.
And I would just put my own comment. If it is about the variant, then you look at that slide there. Why is it safe for 68 people in open skate, but not for a game? Why can the Lions play or the Red Wings play, or U of M or MSU play, but high schoolers can't. If it is about the variant, then it should apply to everyone. Representative Riley?
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I think you're in a kind of unique position here. You're involved with a lot of students. You see what's going on out there, and you see the benefits of being involved with athletics. And so when I look at the policies that we're putting forward here, I got to ask, I know you're not a doctor, but I would imagine what you're saying is, or you can comment on this, that the good that the government's trying to do here actually is causing more harm than good, seeing the benefits that are being taken away from individuals such as health, mental health, emotional health, and physical health, especially in a society where we have so many people where obesity is such a problem. If you weigh all this out, would you agree with that the policy put forth here is actually doing more harm than good?
Absolutely. I mean, I have 2,000 plus kids at Brighton High every day. You know, and I'm not naive. I know what goes on after the school day. I know what goes on Friday and Saturday nights in our community. Yes, the answer is yes to that, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Representative LeGrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, first of all, I certainly agree with you that exercise is a good idea. I have a very hard time personally seeing that there is a necessary correlation between exercise and sports. Everyone in my family is exercising very systematically, and they're able to do so, and they've done so during the whole course of the vaccine. Now, you're right. A lot of people are depressed. I'm depressed by the vaccine. I mean, by the virus. I mean, it depresses me, all the things I can't do. I own a restaurant. It bums me out that my restaurant's closed. It depresses me that I can't go to movies. There's lots of depression in the community. And maybe you're right. Maybe we should have a big campaign to point out to people, especially people who are over high school age and probably could afford to lose 40 or 50 pounds, that maybe they should go exercise. I think those are all great ideas. But I assume you are aware that, first of all, U of M has closed down all of its sports activities because of this new variant. Second of all, that the current projections are that this will be the dominant variant in Michigan within a couple months because this variant spread so fast. Third of all, that there's data that shows that it's more deadly, not just more contagious, but more deadly. There's emerging information about this. So we're talking about something that all our old patterns are not good enough. If wearing a mask sometimes and not other times was okay for the first variant and somehow you escaped it, we got a new set of rules for contagion. We got a new set of rules for lethality. That's very concerning to me. The other thing that concerns me is we have a vaccine, and acting as though we shouldn't wait for the vaccine seems to me roughly the equivalent of running a marathon and lighting yourself on fire just when you can see the finish line. We have all done a lot of sacrifices to get to this point, and I appreciate the chair's suggestion that we stop practices in skating rinks. I think that we should certainly look at much more serious restrictions on activities that are going to create crowding. And I think that's certainly something I'd be glad to look into. My other concern here is, and I think we have to be honest about this, a lot of what happens around, and there was some mention already of community. A lot of what a high school sports football game on a Friday night in a small community does not mean two teams getting out on a field and running into each other. It involves everybody in that small town congregating. It involves people getting together afterwards. It involves parents showing up. It involves bubbles breaking. And probably, other than masking, probably the most effective technique we have for coronavirus control at this point is bubbling, is staying in our own spheres. And I know the chair referred to some professional sports. Professional sports teams, I know early on, did a lot of bubbling so that they could keep playing. I have a hard time seeing how setting up competitive sports isn't going to attract spectators, isn't going to attract support people, and isn't going to attract socializing that's necessarily going to contribute to the spread of the virus. And I just want to point out, we have a vaccine. half of my family members have been vaccinated by this point. I haven't, which is why I'm still wearing the respirator I'm wearing. But we are very close we are, you know, if President Biden is committed to 100 million vaccines being administered in the next 100 days, perhaps we should talk about prioritizing immunizing student athletes.
Please ask your question.
Yeah, well, I guess my question is, can you honestly tell me that you don't think that anyone would be involved in these sports if we're reopened besides the athletes themselves, and that wouldn't lead to risk of communication out in the community?
Yeah, absolutely, I can answer that. Couple of things. In reference to the variant and those type of things, and even just COVID-19 in general, nobody's presented the data to our member schools or the MHSA. We've presented data. In terms of exercising, yeah, you know, a kid can walk out of their house and go for a 2-mile run. That's different than being with their peers and playing in a sport. Our kids, whether you agree or you don't agree, have said if it takes a mask to be able to practice and play, game on. They'll do it, even though they're not doing it in other states. In terms of, you know, I love Friday night football, you know, the small town Friday night football, or a Tuesday or Friday night basketball game in the old barn gym. But you know what? We've been participating and playing all fall, all winter with spectator limits, whether that's two per participant or no spectators. There are 0 spectators that will be at our bowling matches this year. There are limited spectators at swimming and diving. Those protocols have put in place. Parents, you know, will give up watching their kids or have to watch it on a live stream so their kids can play. In terms of opening things up, I mean, you can go to Meijer, you can go to the movies, restaurants are opening on February 1st, casinos are open, the kids can go shopping in a mall, but we can't let kids play, I guess. So I think I've answered your question and hopefully touched on a couple of your comments.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of do a quick response to that. If our goal here is to limit the spread, I would encourage Representative from Grand Rapids to look at a University of Wisconsin studied tens of thousands of kids, and it showed that student athlete, their rates of COVID positivity tests were less than their peers that were not student athletes. So actually, they have less of a spread. And what we saw anecdotally in my district is they know that if someone on their team tests positive, they can't play that next game. And that whole season now is upended. So there is a lot of social pressure from the parents, from the teammates to say, hey, be safe. You better not get COVID because I want to make sure we can play on Friday. And so I think actually student athletes are being the most responsible of anyone. And when you take away that incentive, now they don't care. The kids are still going to go to their friend's house and hang out. We know that's going to happen. So why not keep an incentive and say, hey, if you're smart, if you're safe, we can play on Friday night. If you're not, you're going to ruin our whole season. That's what's actually happening. Representative Brixey.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chair. I have more than one question, if that's okay with you.
Let's just keep it to one. We got a lot more people testify, so let's just keep it to one for now.
Okay. Well, my question was that you identified yourself with an organization, and I was wondering if you could let me know, are you here in your official capacity with the organization that you identified yourself as a member of, or are you here as a parent in terms of full transparency?
Sure. I'm here as a parent. I'm here as an educator. I'm here as an employee of Brighton Area Schools. And yes, I do sit on the MHSA Board of the Representative Council of the Michigan High School Athletic Association.
Okay,
so I would say I touch on all those.
But you're not representing them in your official capacity. I misunderstood because I thought when you spoke that you were here presenting on behalf of that organization, and you're not.
And I'll just add real quickly, we were going to have the executive director of MHSAA here before, then he had a last minute thing come up so he couldn't make it. I don't know the official or non-official, but from what I have seen from that organization, they put multiple statements out in the media, saying that they are willing to just tell us what we have to do to get these kids back playing. We just want something. We want to
Right,
be able to
but
work.
the-
I've got to move on. Representative Outman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the information that I have is that last month we conducted over 30,000 rapid tests to student athletes at a 99.8% negative rate. I guess my question is that information accurate? And if so, I don't think we can get much stronger data than that.
Yeah, it's accurate. It's, is a compilation that comes from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, who provided the antigen testing to the Michigan High School Athletic Association, and that then provided to their member schools that were competing in football, volleyball, girls, and swim finals to be able to finish their season. And that data was shared back both to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the MHSA. So yes, I would say it's accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Appreciate you being here today. Next up, I'd like to call up Ethan Cody. After him, we'll have Jay Remersma. We only have 44 minutes left in this committee, so we're going to try to move things along quicker. We got a lot of people wanting to testify. If you come up and tell us who you are and share your story and try to keep things brief. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for letting me be here today. It means more than you ever know. Wow. Hello, my name is Ethan Cody. I'm a senior from Coopersville High School. What an honor and privilege it is to be speaking here today about something I have so much passion for. I'm happy to say here with me are my fellow seniors and my coach, who have been so supportive and just as important during this movement. Without these guys and coach, I know for a fact I wouldn't be up here today. It's because of them I'm so passionate about getting our winter sports season back. They make showing up to every practice, game, and team bonding experience fun and easy, and I appreciate them for that. To see the reaction of my teammates, coaches, and myself after we get hit with another delay is truly heartbreaking, and in fact, some of the worst news I've ever had to receive. You see, well, some people might say that's an exaggeration because it's just a game. That I couldn't disagree with more. For me, basketball has been an escape from the world around me, from all the negative things going on in this world. It's a time where you put your shoes on and go out there with some of your best friends and compete. Playing is the ultimate stress reliever. And instead, now I'm taught the only way I can be considered a decent human being is if after school I go home and stay away from everyone the rest of the day. There is no more stress reliever. There is no more hanging out with your friends without getting yelled at. Instead, now it's lonely. It's just you and your thoughts about this sad world. And when you try to voice your opinion about it, instead of people listening and understanding how you feel, you get bashed and told you're being selfish and that you need to think of others. Well, I'm left sitting here thinking, well, who thinks of me? Who thinks of the thousands of kids who go home every day not knowing if they can make it through the night because they feel trapped being with themselves, when simply dribbling a ball up and down the court with some friends could save them, when going to a cheer practice, wrestling practice, or even a hockey practice could save a life and take thousands of kids out of the terrible mindset they're stuck in now. It sucks watching every state around us play their season while we are stuck here watching these kids live out our dream and improve their chance to play in college, and all we are left to do is simply watch them. And people still just tell us, hey, keep your head up, be positive. So what I'm asking today is that you simply hear my voice, our voices, and take into consideration how all lives have been affected by this virus, because we simply don't feel like you hear us. We feel as if we are being punished for something we hate just as much as everyone else. Again, I want to thank you for letting me come out here today and let my voice be heard. I appreciate it, and I hope you take into account how all student athletes across Michigan feel. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So you're a senior basketball player this year?
Yes.
Were you on the team last year?
Yes, I was.
All right, so I'm trying to remember here. Your end of season got canceled last year at some point. Was it like the playoffs or?
We had actually just ended our season. We were in districts and we lost.
Okay,
But
so you didn't get cut short, but there's a lot of people that did. They got that cut short, and now you're going into your senior year. So really, if this doesn't happen soon, your 2 years on varsity really are gone.
Yeah.
That's well. All right. I don't see any questions here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jay Remersma, and after him will be on deck is Jim Woodworth. Welcome to committee, Jay. Introduce yourself and tell your story.
Well, thank you to the entire committee. My name's Jay Remersma, and in a culture where we try to silence and censor folks, I just want to thank this committee on behalf of the greater good for those that really take into account the First Amendment and the opportunity we have to share. And I want to give the rest of the kids the opportunity to share, so I'll keep my comments brief. If you know my story started at Zeeland and had the opportunity to play as a three-sport athlete there. And then I know I'm on enemy ground here, but I parlayed that into a opportunity to play at the University of Michigan.
Go
Blue, right? And then through a series of events, had the opportunity to play 9 years in the NFL. And the reason I tell you that story is because without athletics, or without the opportunity to be a part of organized athletics, none of that might have ever happened. And here's why. My mom and dad went to a 5th grade parent-teacher conference where the building principal told my parents, Mrs. Eaton, said very succinctly, if I didn't know Jay's parents, I would say he's going to be a juvenile delinquent by the time he's 13. I never saw the light of day in elementary school. My head was down with my thumbs up. I was a troublemaker. But organized athletics provided me an outlet, the discipline, and the structure I needed to not only succeed in school, but also in life. And that's why I'm here today. Simply, I wanted to be a voice, lend a voice to the thousands of student athletes that right now don't have a voice. I have a senior that is on the basketball team. His season was cut short in the district championship last year. I have a sophomore in high school as well, 3 sport athletes, and we got thousands of other student athletes that I want to lend a voice to have the same opportunity that I had and afford them the opportunity to get on the right track. An opportunity to learn the value of working hard, responsibility, sacrifice, commitment, and in particular, in the days that we live in now, the value of your other teammates that come from all different walks of life, different race, ethnicity, socioeconomic class. Those are the life lessons that afford these student athletes to not only be successful in school, but ultimately to be a positive influence in our society at large. And I implore you today, please, on behalf of my kids and the thousands others that are going to have an opportunity this year to play, please let them play. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I appreciate those comments. I think that's one of the things we love about athletics. It doesn't matter your religion, your race, your background. When you're out on the field, when you're on the court, it's an equalizer. It doesn't matter your background, and that's what's so tremendous. I know because you have a little background, obviously going to college with the scholarship issue. How is this going to affect when it comes to recruiting and Michigan students that there's a lot of students that this is their ticket to a higher education? How is this going to affect when they can't play? I mean, I don't know that world. I wasn't quite that good of an athlete. Can you talk on that at all?
Yeah, it is dramatically impacted. Unfortunately, my son, who's a senior, just committed to Saginaw Valley State University for a scholarship. But realistically, the reason that he had that opportunity was not because of his high school career. It was because he went to AAU and went to a travel club and had the opportunity to play, guess what, in neighboring states because we were shut down. And so I have a daughter that's playing at Miami of Ohio on a scholarship there for volleyball, but this has dramatically impacted these kids and the opportunity that they have to succeed. And I just simply say, we want to follow the science. These kids, statistically speaking, are not going to be negatively impacted by this disease. They may get it, and yes, it ran through our family, but we all had it, we recovered, and we're taking away the future of these boys and girls in their athletic careers. And I implore you to just let them play. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. All right, next up we have Jim Woodworth, and on deck we have Jason Friday. Jim, if you could introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name is Jim Woodworth. I am a 40-year-old small business owner in downtown Owasso and a basketball coach at Corona High School. And I want to share my story because it really echoes what some of these people have been saying about the long-term impact about not playing sports. My parents divorced when I was in 5th grade. We moved to a different area shortly after. And fortunately, I made quick friends with the neighborhood boys in that area. But as a parent, you would look at those kids and say, my kid is hanging out with the wrong crowd. I first tried illegal drugs in 7th grade. I was a 14-year-old who smoked, drank, and did a lot of different things that forced my mom to get to know my principal, teachers, and local police officers better than she ever wanted to. My life started to change for the better entering into my freshman year. I played football, and being around the football program, getting ready for that freshman year, I started to associate myself with people who took academics and athletics more seriously. I hung around those people who, to give you context, 2 of them are dead, and the other 2 have or are serving in prison, and myself and another friend fortunately have a story to share that's positive. But as I entered high school, I started to spend less and less time with those folks, and it was the common goal and the expectations of being on a team that really forced my hand to change my life. By my junior year, I was completely drug-free, alcohol-free for the remainder of my high school career, and fortunately, I had the opportunity to play basketball in college, and had it not been for the team aspect and being expected of higher things from my teammates, I don't think that would have ever happened. And our kids today face those same temptations that I did in middle school. And athletics is an outlet for so many kids, especially in poor income areas, that the long-term effects of not playing, I think, has a far greater impact than the health crisis we're in today. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yes, thank you for your story. We have Rep. Riley.
Thank you. I was interested when you said you're a business owner, and because this kind of makes me think about my history and look back and seeing how things have changed. It used to be that kids worked a lot younger. Often it was not unusual to see kids working when they were 10, 11 years old, and then progressing through that. Since then, I've seen a change where a lot more kids are involved with sports, and this is kind of, to my opinion, has kind of filled that void that work, if in case they don't work, instead they're picking up the same kind of things: interpersonal skills, stronger work ethic, discipline, self-discipline, and they see the results of hard work. So a thing that's kind of missing now is younger people working. Fortunately, they found another avenue in sports. I see it this way. Would you agree in that we're taking away this, many of these things I mentioned, the ability to form strong work ethics and things like that?
Absolutely strong work ethic, but also strong relationships. My first job out of college was because of an introduction from an assistant basketball coach, and my business partner today was a college teammate. So I think there's a strong bond, and somebody said 95% of CEOs are former athletes. Absolutely, athletics instills a great sense of work ethic and so many other things that are, that carry on through the business world.
Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions. We're going to keep moving through here. All right, we got Jason Friday next, all the way from Sheboygan. Thanks for making the drive in this morning. On deck, Jamie McElvaney. So, Jason, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jason Friday. I'm the Sheboygan Boys Varsity Athletic Director. I'm Sheboygan Boys Varsity Basketball Coach and Athletic Director. I played 3 sports in high school for Sheboygan High. I've coached for over 20 years for the school district. I'd like to start out by thanking you for taking the time to listen to myself and other individuals affected by the shutdown of winter sports. I want you to know that while I carry the student athletes of Sheboygan in my heart, I didn't drive all the way down here to represent just them. Instead, I'm here for all the winter athletes, from Ironwood to Detour, from New Buffalo to Temperance, Bedford, and everywhere in between here in the great state of Michigan. We've heard the statistics, but I want to put a little different text to it. We all remember how excited we were, or have seen the excitement of kids and grandkids come Christmas morning. Imagine if on Christmas morning, after waking up, those children were told we were going to postpone Christmas for a couple weeks. They would be devastated. After those weeks pass and the excitement builds back up, the kids wake up on Christmas morning again, bubbling with enthusiasm, and are told it's being pushed back one more time. They would be crushed. Then it happens a third time with the possibility that there will be no Christmas. You can imagine the heartbreak of those kids. That's essentially what's happening to our winter sports athletes. The kids get their hopes up only to have that start date pushed back with the possibility of not coming. The worst part about all of this is the inconsistency with what MDHHS is doing. I can be in a classroom of 30 kids, walk in the halls, play sports in gym class, be in locker rooms, be on a packed bus to and from school, but I have to stay 6 feet apart in practice, and I can't play games? I can go shopping in a store. This past weekend, I went to Gaylord and went to a few stores there, but I can't play sports? We're worried about cross-contamination in sports, yet I can go to these stores and there can be people from all over Michigan in these same stores. For many of our student athletes across the state, being part of a team is their support system. I've looked the seniors in the eyes. I've seen and felt their passion for the sport. Most of them won't be going on to play at the collegiate level. This is it. Think of all the training, the summer camps, the sweat, the traveling. Some athletes have been waiting for this their whole lives. These kids need to play. Finally, I ask you to think of something that means the world to you. And then think about how much it would hurt if that was taken away. You may not think sports are such a big deal, but you try and tell that to a high school athlete. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing the perspective of an athletic director. So it's been a hot second since I was in high school, but I remember when I was there, there were GPA academic requirements in order to be on a team. A good friend of mine was a very good athlete, but he struggled in school, and that was what drove him to make sure that he passed his classes. I mean, if it wasn't for being on the cross-country team, he would not have cared. Is that still the case with schools? Are there GPA requirements in order to compete?
Yes, and because of athletics being a big question mark, we actually have had one student who's dropped out of school.
Wow. And so you wonder how many people, it's not just, hey, they wanted to play a sport, it's also their academics that are being affected by this. Representative Altman has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, sir, for your testimony. I'm just wondering if you've had many student athletes travel to some of our border states that are allowing sports to continue, and if so, are you concerned about the increased travel and mobility of those student athletes?
Living in northern Michigan, we haven't had anyone that's made that long trip to a border state. I will say that I have been asked as basketball coach if I would take the team across the border by a parent, and I declined to do that.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you for your time. Next up, we have Jamie McElvaney. I think, are you coming up with some guests as well, or by yourself? All right, by yourself. That's fine. Yep, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
All right.
I have kids speaking, but.
Well, let's bring them at the same time then, since time is of the essence. If we can maybe move people together if possible. I think we're around about under a half an hour here.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. On deck after this is Matt Seidel. If you could introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jamie McElvaney. I'm the founder of the Let Them Play Michigan group that currently has over 32,000 members on Facebook. Our group started back in August when football was taken away. That fight was important to me because my son's passion is football. However, today I'm not here for my son, but for the tens of thousands of athletes across the state of Michigan who now find themselves in the same position. Michigan student athletes have become the targets of political games. The governor's office and the health department continually claim that they are following the science and looking at the numbers, and that this is why the only thing in the entire state that is not allowed to open are these high school sports. So that must mean that these athletes are considered to be the only danger left in the state of Michigan. And since Michigan is one of the only states continuing with this type of restriction, I guess you could say that means that these Michigan high school athletes are one of the only threats left in the entire country. But if we're following the science, how in the world is this possible? Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has their own science that they collected from our athletes this past fall. That science is indisputable. Our fall athletes were able to compete 95 to 98% of their competitions because the positive test rate was so low. We then went on to be a part of the pilot program from the health department, where they performed over 30,000 tests on our athletes with a 99.8% negative test rate. So where is the science? We're asking the state of Michigan, where's your science? We have our science. The science the governor keeps sharing is from back in November. And she also keeps sharing rates from sports in general. She's never talked about the high school science. That's a slap in the face of these athletes and coaches who have put so much effort into following every single one of her rules to a T. Stand here. Don't touch that. Don't breathe on one another. Don't talk to one another. Don't spend the night with your friends. Don't go on vacation. Don't hang out with your friends on the weekend. Don't go over to your family's house for holidays. Don't hug your grandparents. And the final rule that they abided by, which in my opinion is one of the most ridiculous, disgusting things that we have done to our students in the state of Michigan, is we have asked them to put a barrier over their nose and mouth while performing high-level intensity sports. How any lawmaker in the state can allow that is mind-blowing to me. We are the only state in the entire country that imposes that abuse on the youth that we are supposed to be taking care of. But they did it. They did it with the hopes of being able to have one thing given back to them throughout this horrible year that they have been dealt. But no, none of that was good enough. What else can these kids possibly do? I'll tell you what is happening. These kids are losing their faith in government. It's a sad state that we are in when an entire generation of kids who will soon be of voting age have lost all faith in having their voices heard by their elected officials. I get messages on a daily basis from students reaching out, begging me for help. I got a message from a mom saying she was currently holding her 6'2" son on her lap as he cried of exhaustion from the emotional roller coaster that we are putting these kids through. I have many kids message me and say, Miss McElvaney, is there anything you're going to do to help us? Because I really don't think I can deal with this much longer. This statement from a kid that I'm looking at right now, I'm looking at a picture of his face because he snapped me this picture, and he wrote the words, "The pain of never being able to be happy, the pain of losing yourself as a person, the pain of faking a smile every day, the pain of not ever knowing how today is going to go, the pain of not knowing what is going to happen. The mental health of Michigan's children are at an all-time low, and it's being ignored. Children all over the country are committing suicide at an alarming rate, and it's being ignored. I understand that we're dealing with a terrible situation when it comes to the virus. I have cried many tears when my brother, a father of 4, was in the hospital with double pneumonia, COVID, and severely damaged lungs. But what should happen is that the state of Michigan and the health department should be asking these high school athletes and coaches for help. They should be going to them to find out how to deal with this virus, because it seems like the athletes have it figured out. They have figured out how to produce a 99.8 negative test rate. They have figured out how to continually test lower than the general population and the general population of other teenagers. But what are they getting out of it? Punishment. Punishment with zero explanation, zero science to back up their punishment, zero concern for their well-being. We have no other option in the state of Michigan than to get these kids back into school and back into sports. Their mental health literally depends on it. Thank you.
Would any of you care to talk as well? I'll go next. All right, go ahead. Just introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Jillian Molnar, and I am a junior at Britton Deerfield High School. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on behalf of something that my team and I care so deeply about. Almost a year ago, to this date, high school students, like myself, were struck with the news that the remainder of our school year would be taken away from us. We were struck with the news that the sports we participated in and looked forward to every single day would fail to reach completion. We were struck with the news that our valuable high school memories would seemingly become non-existent. But we were also promised. We were promised that things would change for the better, promised that things would be different only for a little while. So we, as high school students, yearning for our friends, those unforgettable sports practices, those much-loved pep assemblies, those Friday night football games, that lunchtime small talk, we hung on to that rope of promise until our knuckles turned white. And yet here all of us growing teenagers remain almost a year after that promise was made, still hanging on to that exact same rope. This is all so unfair, and I truly believe that that is the only way to explain it. I live for those moments on the basketball court, feeling the ball pounding beneath my hand while our wild family of a student section chants and screams. And it deeply saddens me to have to comprehend that those memories are certainly not a given this school year. But why, I ask myself. We've socially distanced from our friends. We've struggled to catch our breath under a mask every single day at practice. We've sanitized our hands until they're raw after passing the basketball back and forth with our teammates. Referees, aging and possibly struggling with health conditions, They voluntarily run up and down the court with a mask on just so us high school athletes could have some taste of normalcy back. Every single member of our sports teams are limited to just 2 tickets, and no matter how much we've wished our grandparents could watch our last game, no matter how hard we've tried to negotiate with the coaches, we've stuck to that. We've been forced to make a choice between which members of our families are allowed to attend and which ones aren't. But no matter how much we've longed for the entirety of our loved ones to be there with us, we've done and still do what we've been told. Our teams have sat 6 feet away from each other on the sidelines, all wearing masks and looking seemingly separated, but we've continued to have that family bond that a team has. We still all continue to dream that same dream and crave that same goal, being by each other's side even if it means staying away. Isn't that enough? There is only so much that school districts can do until they run out of options, and teenage students like myself cannot continue to have our memories, our foundations for adulthood, stripped away from us repeatedly. I'm confident that things will work out for the better, and my classmates, my teammates and I, we will continue to have faith and remain calm in the unfair situations that we are living in today. But I grow weary, and I grow so tired of asking myself the same question every single day. When will we be allowed to be teenagers again? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nico Johnson. I am a member of the graduating class of 2022, a member of the MHSA Student Council Advisory, a 3-sport varsity athlete, and a heartbroken young man, trying to make sense of the state in which I live and the government I have been brought up to respect and admire. I'm here today to speak to you with a broken heart and a longing for answers. I have always been a rule follower. I've been raised in a home with parents who have taught me the values of right and wrong. They have taught me that hard work and perseverance are not choices, but an expectation. They have instilled in me that the value of living in a society governed by justice, democracy, and freedom. And I'm wondering what it means to you that in the last few months, as I have felt though I have lost my ability to believe in those things. Everything I have worked for seems to be meaningless. I've done my work. I have followed all safety guidelines set forth by your administration and the many, many entities that are under your jurisdiction. I have worn my mask, socially distanced from my friends, stayed away from large group gatherings, and even when it meant not seeing my family for the holidays. I've done all of this, and it just yet seems like it's never enough. I've done all you've asked of me, and yet you continue to take away the one thing that means the most to me during this period of time in my life. Time. Time is the one thing I can never get back. I can't get back my district basketball championship game from last season. I can't get back the camps and combines that have been canceled. I can't get back the conversations I could have had with college recruits who have the potential to change my life forever. I can't get back my practice time with teammates, my grandparents watching me from the bleachers, and the memories of my high school career. And now I am full of worry. I'm worried this will never end. I am worried that normal will never return and my hard work was all for nothing. I worry that our government is failing us and we are no longer living in the greatest country in the world. As a 17-year-old young man, that's a lot of worry to carry. And I know some of my peers must be feeling the same. Suicide rates are on the rise, mental health concerns are more prevalent than ever, and kids are losing their sense of purpose. It is so sad, so unfair, and so unnecessary. So today I come to you for 2 things. I would like for you to accept a promise of accountability, the accountability of myself and my teammates to continue to follow the science and safety your administration has put forth and to allow us the chance to prove to you that we can compete safely. We know COVID is scary. We know lives have been lost in our state, in our country, and all over this world. It hit very close to home for me when my mom was diagnosed, hospitalized, and fought her battle for nearly a month. She's never been that sick, but she's still here, fighting harder than ever and supporting our desire to get back to living life. We aren't asking to ignore the facts or to move forward without regard to the safety protocols we know that will keep us safe. We are here to simply ask to implement the practices all the other states are using that are allowing them to move forward with their lives. We can accomplish competing in winter sports safely. We just need that chance. In addition, I would like to ask you to give me back time. Time to be a kid. Time to make memories, to fulfill dreams, and to regain the confidence I once had in our government. We need time to be restored to us, and we need you to know that our parents, our administrators, our teachers, coaches, and friends will adhere to your requests, and they will keep us safe. Please let us play. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Natalie Badro. I'm from Holland, Michigan, and I'm a senior at Tri-Unity Christian. Today I'm facing one of my biggest fears, public speaking. I'm normally not the person to be doing this, but God has called me to step up and put a light on kids' lives that are on the line. This is something that holds great value in my heart, as I'm one of those kids. I'm here today to tell you the importance of sports and why we should be playing. To some, it's just a game or just a sport. To me and many others, it's so much more than just a game. It's a way to escape, an outlet, a way to make friends, and be a part of a community. My freshman year and most of high school, I've struggled with depression and anxiety. I would not be here today if it weren't for God's love in sports. If I didn't have that outlet or community, I don't want to even think about what would have happened. Many other student athletes have gone through that struggle and are going through that right now. Sports and other extracurriculars play just as important of a role as academics. Sports help motivate kids to get good grades so they can play in the game. Sports drive students to do and be better. Sports teach leadership, communication, selflessness, hard work, and desire. It's so much more than just a game. Teams across the state have worked so hard and followed all the rules so they can play. So why are we continually put on pause? It's hard not only as a senior, but as an athlete to give everything you have into something and have it taken out from under you without a clear explanation. Seeing other states be able to play is beyond frustrating when we can't. I'm asking you to please help us so we can play. There's so many kids' lives that depend on it. As a senior, it breaks my heart that I might not be able to play one last time on my home court. I might not get the chance to put on my high school jersey again after almost a year of not being able to play high school sports. It was hard enough having my junior soccer season taken away along with many others, but what's harder is the uncertainty this past month. When we were finally able to move 2 steps forward, we were told we have to take 3 steps back. The mental health of student athletes is declining. It's just not a sport for us. It's become a part of our lives and is being taken away. How can states that are only an hour and a half away be able to play, but we can't? What's the difference? It seems reasonable to communicate with nearby states who have allowed sports for the past several months and ask what they're doing differently so we can play. Sports play a big role in many athletes' lives, and mental health goes hand in hand with it. There's kids out there that are feeling hopeless because their outlet or way to cope with things is being taken away. You can help save those kids' lives. Will you help us take a stand and let us play? A quick message to those that are feeling depressed because of our current situation. Know that you always have at least one person to turn to, and that's God. You are enough, you are loved, you are valued, and worthy in His eyes, always. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will never leave or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Deuteronomy 31:8. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I hope this encourages you to help us start playing again as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And a Tri-Unity Christian, the South Christian person, not too far from you. We have Rep. Hoydinga.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming today. If I had my way, you guys would be playing. I'm sorry that you had to travel here for this. And so my Uber ride in to the Capitol today, I asked the Uber driver, so with the bars being closed, are you guys slow for business now? And he says, oh no, it's getting worse and worse, like more and more and more, he said. And he was referring to like East Lansing with the students. And so it leads me to believe that okay, and I'm not asking you to incriminate yourself because I know you guys are being very good and abiding by the mandates. But my question, I'll word it carefully, the longer the mandates are going on and on and on, and are you finding that your peers, wouldn't be you guys, but are you finding that your peers are more tempted to break these mandates and gather just to escape this loneliness and needing that, companionship with your peers? Do you guys see anything's getting worse because you're being held down so much, and so you're willing to gather in other situations, social situations?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely many kids that I know that just feel so trapped and so alone, and they just start to not care, and they want that companionship. They want, someone to go talk to that's not like in their house where they're stuck. So
if I could just follow up. So as I hear throughout all the testimony, I was writing down some of the words structure and where's all the words I had written down? You guys, discipline, it's an outlet. The ethics of it, you have oversight by your coaches and parents who care about you and don't want to see you guys going this direction. And so to have that structure, I feel is so important for you guys. And I hope the state of Michigan and the governor and DHHS changes course on this quickly for your sake.
If I could comment on that, just as a parent of an athlete, absolutely the kids are definitely giving up on when sports were stopped. They said, okay, fine. When my son was they went through a couple steps into the football playoffs, and they absolutely were much more restricted with where they were going, what they were doing. They were not hanging out with anyone but their team. And now that it's over and it's taken away again, and they're beyond frustrated, and they are so done with this that they don't even care anymore. And they are hanging out with their friends. They are hanging out on the weekends. They are doing the things that they're being asked not to do because they're kids. And the fact that it was brought up that we should keep them in a bubble, that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. Keeping the bubble situation, okay, if that's what the colleges and the NFLs are having to do, we can't put our kids in a bubble. We have to learn how to live with this situation that we're in. And expecting to keep them in a bubble isn't it. So they're going to be kids. They're going to continue. And these kids are moving out of state. They're going to Ohio. First of all, kids are literally moving. But the kids that aren't moving are traveling to Wisconsin and Indiana and Ohio every single weekend to play these sports because they're going to find a way to play these sports. And the thing is like somebody else mentioned, the kids that won't go out of state are the ones that can't afford it. And the kids who don't have parents who will travel with them. Sorry. When I talk about these kids, I get emotional because the kids that won't be able to travel are the ones that don't have the parents that can do it, and they won't do it if they don't have the money to do it. So I tell you what, if these kids don't get to play sports, we raised over $50,000 in one day in our group on Facebook to take legal action against the state of Michigan. We are moving forward with filing a lawsuit against the state of Michigan. I already have a lawyer. And if this state doesn't move forward and take care of these kids, I will use that money to pay for these kids to go out of state and play sports. I promise you that. Sorry, I didn't, and I'm not directing that towards you.
You're fine, and thank you. And I think it is the law of unintended consequences. When government did this, they thought they were going to stop the spread, but what they're going to do is actually increase it.
Absolutely.
You're going to have people travel more. You're going to have people be more reckless because there's no incentive not to. And there is going to increase disparities between those that have the financial resources to either go to a club sport and go out of state.
And a lot of those kids are our best athletes in Michigan.
Absolutely.
The ones that are going to get left behind are the best athletes.
Absolutely. Representative Brixey.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you guys, especially the kids, for coming here. You guys are clearly coming from a great educational environment. Your comments were very well put together and very well spoken, and you certainly have overcome your any qualms you had about public speaking. You should feel really good because I am a mom, and I am really impressed with the things that you brought to us and have to say to us, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the talk about the mental health, because the isolation that all of us are going through as a result of this pandemic that has killed, I think, 14,411 people so far. The isolation is really challenging. And I hope that we will be able to work across the aisle and work together to pass the COVID relief that has been introduced so that we can get
Rep, we got to
the
keep this
schools
to this committee
open.
here. Do you have a question?
Thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you guys for being here. Up next, we have Matt Seidel, and we are, I think, at about 5 minutes left, so we got to move quick. If Matt could step up, and on deck will be Jen Kozlowski. Matt, if you could come up, introduce yourself, and be quick.
I will do that. Thanks for having me. Yeah, definitely, on behalf of Olivet Schools and our student athletes, I want to thank you. But I'm also here, I guess, just speaking for student athletes in general. And I'm going to abbreviate what I was going to say, and I'll try to just kind of wing it a little bit. I want to speak. I have 12 varsity basketball players. I'm the athletic director, dean of students, and head boys basketball coach at Olivet. I have 12 varsity boys basketball players with me right now, and all 12 of them played football. So if I were one of them, I'm going to just share 30 seconds of their experience. They started the summer playing basketball on blacktop with 90-degree heat, with bumblebees buzzing around their head because we couldn't get in the gym. Then they got into football season, and they bonded with their football team. They went a full week, and then they got shut down, absolutely crushed. And in Olivet, that's a big deal. High school football is a huge deal. They thought they were going to get pushed to the spring. Miraculously, it saved, and they get to play. And it wasn't Friday Night Lights like we know it, but they were grateful for the season that they had. And then we get excited about basketball. The day before we're scheduled to start on November 16th, we get shut down again. And it's happened 3 times now. We went 2 months of inactivity with kids. No activity. That was structured. Virtual contact only with a coaching staff. Finally, we get the okay to have non-contact basketball practices starting January 16th with the idea that we're going to play real basketball on February 1 and be able to compete on February 4. Not ideal, but it's something. And then Friday comes, and we had a 12 noon practice because we had a half a day. And I get the news after the press conference. I'm 58 years old. I haven't been that angry since I was probably 12, it felt like. I didn't tell them before practice. I told them after. And the range of emotions was unbelievable. I mean, I got some hot-headed kids, the anger, the frustration, but we've also had the depression and just they just dumbfounded despair, you name it. The one emotion that was shared by all of them, though, was the feeling of just total unfairness. And the part, it's hard for them. They point to the fact that, 80% of the states in our country are playing their sport, basketball, and other winter sports, but we're not. Why is our state interpreting data different than, the rest of the country, or most of the rest of the country? That was one of them. Also, the idea of they tolerated the pause in November because of the spike that was coming because of the holidays, but they were also told, or at least they believed, that once the numbers trended downward, that they were going to get a chance. And they're trending downward. And I'm not a doctor, but I can read. And they're definitely trending downward, and they're still not getting this chance. And it's just like I said, it's unbelievable. I told them I was coming today, and I might have a chance to speak. And I talked to most of them, but I said, if you got something you want me to say, just send it to me, text it to me. I get home, I have 7 emails in my inbox already. And I'm not going to read all these to you, but I'm going to read a couple comments to you. Basketball means so much to me, and to just have that ripped away hurts terribly. Another one, when I first heard the news Friday, my heart just sank, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I felt like, what is the point of even playing this year? It was hard to come back to practice on Monday. Another one, when I see pictures and videos of my cousins in different states playing basketball, it's like salt in the wound. Another one, I've pretty much lost hope, and I also feel like we're being treated unfairly. I feel like it's crazy that 20% of the states aren't playing basketball right now, and we're one of them. So, I'm going to
cut you off here because we're going to try to see if we can squeeze one more person in here.
Yes,
so,
you can.
If Jen Kozlowski could testify real briefly, I think we've got about a minute and a half. Not trying to rush you,
No
not
problem.
trying to be rude.
Thank you much.
But we can I think this will probably be our last person. To all the student athletes that came today, thank you for being here. I apologize on behalf of the state of Michigan. You guys deserve better than what you've gotten. If you could keep your testimony in 1 minute, and then I'm going to have to cancel committee at that point. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jen Kozlowski. My husband and I are the proud parents of 4 young men from Rockford, Michigan. I'm here today because one of my sons has given up. He's hit his breaking point. He's done, defeated, deflated. Josh is a senior student athlete at Rockford High School. He just finished what turned out to be a marathon but stellar football season. Talk about a lesson in patience, perseverance, submission, cooperation, and everything else these athletes had to endure to be able to first play, then finish their season. I won't elaborate on the highs and lows. I think we've already heard a lot about that. Josh agreed to all of the safety protocols put into place, including being tested for COVID 3 times per week, just to be able to play. The administration and athletic staff did an amazing job of ensuring that the athletes and staff were gathering safely, following all prescribed protocols. Normally, Josh would have jumped right into his wrestling season the week after football, but last Friday was his breaking point. When our governor announced yet another delay for high school winter contact sports, Josh decided he didn't have it in him to fight any longer. He said he's tired of having to fight for something he shouldn't even have to fight for. That's why I'm here, to fight for him and every other Michigan student athlete. I'm his voice now. Instead of cheering him on at the top of my lungs from the sidelines, I'm using my voice to facilitate change. We already heard all the statistics. Fall sports proved that they could compete safely. The data proves it, 99.8% negativity rate. Why is MDHHS not using that data?
All right, I'm gonna have to stop you there.
Okay.
We are at our time limit. We have a lot of people still here to testify. I apologize. We had over 2,500 emails regarding this. They will be officially read into the record. We will be meeting again next week, probably regarding the vaccine rollout. But thank you guys for coming. With that, the committee is adjourned.